Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I think this is the end of the session, September session. I want to say thank you for your practice. Let's see. I continue to talk on this text, opening the hand of thought. In my record, this is 258th talk and almost done. A few more pages. I think I started to talk on this book in 2006, so almost 20 years. Today I'm going to talk on section 6 of chapter 8, page 165, if you have this text. The title of this section is Sit Silently for 10 years, then for 10 more years, and then for another 10 years. This talk, this is based on this transcription of his lecture on the occasion of his final talk at Antaiji. The day before he left Antaiji, he gave this talk. It took more than 2 hours, so it's a long lecture. And what he talked was 7 points of what he kept in his mind while he was the abbot of Antaiji. And he wanted to transmit these 7 points to his successors. So this talk is not mainly. There were many lay people also, but this talk was directly to his disciples. So he doesn't say, lay people have to sit 30 years. Of course you can, if you want. But as Shohaku Roshi's lineage, we practice Zazen a lot. And to be a kind of a leader or teacher or leader of the Sangha, you have to really thoroughly embody this teaching and practice. To do so, he said, monks need to sit at least for 10 years, and after 10 years, 10 more years, then next 10 years. When he gave this talk, this was 1975, so 50 years ago. I was 27, 26. So I couldn't imagine, I started to sit when I was 19. So I sat less than 10 years at that time. So I couldn't imagine how long 30 years could be. So to me, this is his teaching to me by my as a person. Anyway, I'd like to talk more than 2 pages today, so let me read paragraph by paragraph. There is a saying, 1 inch sitting, 1 inch Buddha. It's silly to understand these words to mean that if you sit a little bit, you are a little bit of a Buddha. 1 inch sitting, 1 inch Buddha means that 1 inch is altogether Buddha. So we should resolve to sit as much as possible. So he started to talk about kind of a proverb in Zen. It's kind of a strange thing. 1 inch sitting, 1 inch Buddha. The original expression is 一寸の一寸座れば一寸の仏。一寸 is a Japanese measurement. It's about 3 centimeters. That is equivalent of 1 inch. So it's 1 inch. So this is a unit of length. So it's strange to sit 1 inch, and that is 1 inch of Buddha. But this is a very well-known thing in Zen world, especially in Rinzai school tradition. We don't say so much like this in Soto Dogen's lineage. So I wanted to find what this means, and I found a Chinese poem. It might be an origin of this saying, and that poem is attributed to Ikkyu. Ikkyu was a Rinzai Zen master in 16th century Japan. And what he wrote about this writing, possibly origin of this saying, is Issun, not sitting, but Issun Senko. Do you know what Senko is? Senko is incense. So, we light incense when we sit, and this means no Senko means the time, 1 inch of incense burned. So, that incense burned about 1 hour. So it's like 10 minutes or so. So 10 minutes of Zazen is 10 minutes of Buddha. It's kind of interesting thing, but this means even if you are this is your first Zazen. If you sit 10 minutes, you are Buddha for 10 minutes. But Uchiyama Roshi saying, if you understand this, that you don't need to sit long time. Just 10 minutes of Zazen is enough. You will be Buddha. So sometimes people understand this means just sit for 10 minutes, then that's enough. But Uchiyama Roshi is saying, if we understand that this saying in that way, you don't need to sit so much, then that's a mistake. That is what he's trying to say. He said, this is true. But if you understand this, then we don't need to sit so much. It's a mistake. Because 10 minutes of Zazen is 10 minutes of Buddha. We have to sit 30 years. That is his kind of strange logic. So next he said, it's silly to understand that was to mean that if you sit a little bit, 10 minutes is a little bit, you are a little bit over Buddha, and you think that's enough. 1 inch sitting, 1 inch Buddha means that 1 inch is altogether Buddha. Altogether Buddha means entire Buddha. So we should resolve to sit as much as possible. And Uchiyama Roshi interpreted this saying in terms of Dogen's teaching of practice and verification are one. Practice is shu, and verification is sho. Sho is commonly used, this is result, and shu is cause and result. So when we study Buddhist teaching by hearing or reading, and we try to understand what that teaching means, and if we think that teaching makes sense and we want to practice it, then we start to practice, that is shu. And after a certain period of practice, then we find that teaching was really true. That is what sho or shoka, the result. And that practice experience verify that teaching, Buddha's teaching is really true. So through our practice experience, that means through our body and mind, we find that teaching, Buddha's teaching was really true. That is what shu and sho means. So shu and sho is commonly understood as a cause and result. And this result is the same as awakening or attaining Buddhahood. And Dogen said, shu and sho are one. Shisho ichi nyo. It is one. And nyo is suchness or thusness. One suchness. In suchness, there's no such separation. Or he said, shisho ito. To literally means equal. But we translate this as one, ito, one and the same. That means shu and sho is one. This is one suchness. It's not two separate things. One is a preparation, and another is a result of that preparation. That is kind of a common understanding. If we want to attain awakening, we have to practice as a kind of preparation. But Dogen doesn't agree that idea of separation. So he said, when we practice, realization or awakening or verification is already there in the first zazen. As I often say, when I first received zazen instruction, the instructor told me, your first zazen, and zazen done by very experienced people are same zazen. Or even Dogen's zazen or Buddha's zazen is the same zazen as we sit for the first time. That was when I was 19 years old, so I didn't understand what this means. But that means zazen is not a training to make this person, this deluded person, into enlightened or awakened person. But according to Dogen, zazen is itself awakening. That is how Uchiyama Roshi interpret this saying, 1 inch of zazen or sitting is 1 inch of Buddha. When we sit for the first time, Buddha is manifested, or reality or thusness is manifested right there. Of course, when I was 19, I didn't understand what that person saying. And I had many strange questions. I knew nothing about Zen or Buddhism. But the person said, this my Zazen for the first time is Buddha's Zazen. So no matter how many years you practice, until you die, you practice the same Zazen. So now I have more than 50 years, almost 60 years have passed. And I'm 77. I couldn't sit anymore, but I sit until I became 72. So I practiced Zazen for 50 years. I was ordained when I was 22. And I found the saying of that the instructor is true. My first Zazen with so many delusion and without any understanding, and my Zazen 50 years later is the same Zazen. Of course, I was different. After 16 years old, I studied Buddhist teaching, Dogen's teaching, and I have been sitting, so I am different. But my Zazen is not different. My Zazen is not really this person's Zazen, but Zazen is Buddha's Zazen. That is the point of Dogen. So when Uchiyama Roshi understands this saying, 1 inch of Zazen is 1 inch of Buddha. That means your first Zazen is your first sitting Buddha. That is true. But there's no improvement, nothing getting better about Zazen, of course. So there's no reason or no excuse. Now I sat enough. I became better. I reached the goal I thought I wanted to reach. Therefore, now I graduate from sitting. There's no time we can say so. Of course, depending upon our physical condition or aging, when Uchiyama Roshi gave this lecture, he was 62. As a Zen teacher, 60 was not old enough to retire, but he had to retire because he couldn't sit sesshin anymore at that age. So depending upon certain condition, sometimes we have to give up of sitting, and I gave up when I was 72. But that doesn't mean I stopped practice. After retirement, I go to Y, and my walking is my meditation practice now. So I try to go to Y, if possible, every day. So even I couldn't sit with this posture, still I cannot stop practice. So that is his understanding. Our first Zazen is our first Buddha. And yet, there's no time we can say, I had enough. So we have to continue to sit. That is what he meant when he said, 1 inch sitting, 1 inch Buddha. Means that 1 inch is altogether Buddha, entire Buddha. Nothing is lacking. So we should resolve to sit as much as possible. And he started to talk the condition of Japanese Zen Buddhism. I've heard that in the Rinzai sect, Rinzai school, these days, monks stay in the monasteries for only 2 or 3 years. In the Soto sect, it is even worse. Young people can receive qualification as a priest in as little as 6 months or a year, if they have a college degree from a good school, and then they leave monastic training. So in order to become a Soto priest, young people have to stay 6 months or 1 year. Of course, that is a minimum length. So some people stay at the monastery for many more years, usually 1 year or 3 years. Or I know someone who stayed at AH for 10 years. So they could stay, but not many, or almost no one stays so long. Most people stay only 6 months or 1 year. And they could be, they are qualified as a temple priest. So this qualification is not to become a Zen teacher or Zen master, but this is a qualification or license to be a temple priest. And the job for temple priest is not sitting. Their job is doing ceremonies. And to do so, it might be, 1 year is enough. But Uchiyama Roshi is talking about Zen monk or Zen training is this Shohaku Roshi's Zazen. And 6 months or 1 year is not enough at all. It really is not, he said, it really is nonsense if people think they could be a Zen master or Zen teacher within 6 months or 1 year. They just can't become true monks in 2 or 3 years. We have to live out ourselves. We have to live ourselves, understanding that everything depends on ourselves. We have to practice long enough to realize this attitude, sitting silently for at least 10 years. At least 10 years. When I became a monk, my father told me a proverb that says, sit for 3 years, even on stone. This is a very common Japanese proverb. So he told me to practice silently for 3 years. After 3 years has passed, he said to me, Bodhidharma sat facing the wall for 9 years. And so I sat facing the wall for 9 years. He talks about himself. So he sit first 3 years, and then he determined to sit 9 years like a Bodhidharma. But after 10 years of practice, after he had practiced for 10 years, I made up my mind to practice 10 more years. If you've been practicing for 10 years, you can see just how long the next 10 years will be. You begin to get it, 10 years isn't so long. For teenager, 10 years is really long. But when we become 30, 10 years is not so long. when Uchiyama Roshi was ordained, he was about 30 years old, because he became a monk after he finished graduate school and be a teacher at a Catholic seminary. So he was not so young. He was not like a teenager when he became a monk. So after 10 years, he was already 40 years old. So he finds 10 years is not so long. At first, it seems that even a year or two of practice is too long and hard. But after 10 years, it's not so difficult to make up your mind to practice for 10 more. So he continued to sit. So he practiced about 30 years until he became 62 when he retired. So I think that was why he said 10 years, next 10 years, and 10 more years. That makes 30 years. That was how long he practiced by himself. But he, I started to practice when I was 19. So I practiced longer than he did. And, the length of time doesn't make any sense. But what he's saying is to become a real monk, real Zen monk. It doesn't make sense if we think we can be complete the training within few months, half a year or 1 month, 1 year or several months. But he said at least 10 years. Because the first sentence of this paragraph, he said, we have to live out ourselves, understanding that everything depends on ourselves. This understanding that everything depends on ourselves refer to what he talked in the previous section. In the section 5, he said, realizing that development and backsliding are your responsibility alone. Endeavor to practice and develop. So whether we practice or not we practice is depend on our intention, our determination. So we have to live out our life, not only when we are in the monastery, but our entire life as everything depends on myself, to really embody that attitude, not only understanding as a concept, but really embody, everything is up to me, myself. I have to live out my own life. That is my personal responsibility. So just understanding what Dogen wrote or what Buddha said is not enough. We have to really educate ourselves as an experience. We have to live our life. Our life is not our personal life alone. That is what Dogen and Uchiyama Roshi said about what is the self. And I wrote a book about the structure of the self. The self is not this personal body and mind. That is a kind of a collection of our past karmas. But this person, in my case, Shohaku, is a collection of all different elements. So it seems this is one, but still this is empty. There's no fixed substance. I can point out this is me, but this is a collection of the experiences and our concept made through those experiences. So I think I'm this kind of person and I want to do this. Therefore, I am a Buddhist priest. But that is not true in terms of Buddha's teaching of no self or emptiness. And when we see, this is simply a collection of different elements, and there's no such fixed self, emptiness, then according to Mahayana teaching, we find we are the elements which consists of this person is just coming and going from outside and stay for a while as a part of Shohaku and go away. In that sense, we are supported by all other things what is not me. So me and other beings, in Dogen Zenji's expression, self and myriad dharmas in Genjo Koan are really coming and going, support each other. And when we understanding is not enough. And when we really live based on that understanding of what is the self is not this personal body and mind, but this self is really one or interconnected with all myriad things, everything in this universe. Then how we do as a part of this interconnectedness is our responsibility. How we use this particular body and mind, particular five skandhas, for the sake of all beings, to keep this interconnectedness, a network of interdependent origination in a healthy way. That is our responsibility. And to live in that way, it really takes entire life. That is what he's going to say next. 1 inch sitting, 1 inch Buddha is true. 1 inch sitting for just a short time is also good zazen, nothing lacking. Since there is no specific amount of time that we can say we should sit. So we cannot say, 10 minutes zazen is enough, or 10 years zazen is enough, or 50 years of zazen is enough. There is nothing, no such distinction. But the more we practice, the more we practice opening the hand of thought, the clearer it becomes to us that self is not the same as thought. So he said, self and thought. What we are thinking in our brain, I think we usually think, what I think is who I am. Because I think I am a Buddhist priest, I am a Buddhist priest. Therefore, I have to do this and that. I try not to do other things. So, and we almost always said, what I think, because this is my thought, this is correct. And all other thought other people have is wrong. mistaken or not complete enough understanding. So we think we are better than others. Therefore, we do what we want to do, what we think we want to do. So we don't kind of make a distinction between self and thought. That is a problem. Our self is not, our self include both. Self-thinking is a tiny part of the self, and this self is empty. And things are coming in and going out, and living together with all other people and all other beings in this universe, in the nature. So to see this reality, this karmic person, a collection of 5 skandhas, is not really me or the self. We come to see decisively that the true self is not something made up in our heads. What we think who I am is not really who I am. True self is the self of everything. The self that is one together with all beings. The self of the whole Dharma world. The original self that is called original self in Zen. That is manifest when we let go of thought. And this letting go of thought is what we practice in our Zen. So in order to be awakened to this reality of the self, self as one, self as emptiness, and self as interconnectedness. To see all these, we need to continue to letting go of thought or opening the hand of thought. That is our Zen. That means being free from self-centeredness. In other words, if we practice for a long time, there really will be some result. So when I was 19, I couldn't understand what even I read what Uchiyama Roshi is saying here. I don't think I could understand what he's saying. It doesn't make sense. This is a strange thing to me. To almost everyone. And unless we study Buddhist teaching. And not only understanding what Buddha taught, but to become the self, become like that person, actualize that reality. Then it takes more time and continue to live in that way. It takes entire life. And next he says, even if sit only for a short time, that is all right, that is a good enough Zazen. There is no question that we become aware of reality in our sitting. So this aware is not always understand, but this awareness is beyond our thinking. It actualized, like what he said in Genjo Koan. When we sit, actually myriad of things are sitting. It's not this person is practicing and trying to understand myriad things. But when we open our hand, let go of thought, then myriad of things come to me and allow me to practice in this way. That is a very basic teaching of Dogen. So beginners Zazen and Zazen after 10 years of practice are not two different things. So as I said, my first Zazen when I was 19, and my Zazen after I became older than 70, still same Zazen. At the same time, I still maintain that it is essential to practice Zazen continuously for a long time. Actually, we have to keep practicing our whole lives, our entire lives. This entire lives is our Zazen. So Shohaku Roshi's famous thing is our awakening or our enlightenment is beginningless, without beginning, and our practice is endless. It's a kind of interesting thing. To be aware of our true universal self, we should continue to practice as long as we live. So this entire life is to practice this self and to see the self and all beings are supported each other and living together, existing together. Without other things, we cannot exist even for a moment. Same as, without air or water, we cannot live. Without the support of others, we cannot live. And next paragraph is a little difficult, so I need to explain. What he said, he quoted one paragraph from Shobogenzo. Shobogenzo Shoaku Maksa. Sho means all or various or many, and ak is evil or bad. Mak is not, and sa is do. So not doing all or anything evil. Of course, as you know, this is a part of Shakyamuni's saying, teaching, Shoku Maksa and Shuzen Bugyo. Bugyo is respectfully practice or carry out all good. So not doing anything evil and practice everything good. That is the famous verse from Dhammapada. And in this fascicle of Shobogenzo, he talks about this teaching. And the third line is, what is the third line?
Purify the mind in order to save all beings.
Yes, in Chinese. Anyway, that is what he says. That means keep our mind pure. Keep our mind pure. And our interpretation is first too. We should not do evil. We have to practice good. This is one set of teaching. And keep your mind pure is Jujō Goi. Sorry. means keep our minds pure means we go beyond good and bad. So there are two parts of teachings. We have to do good and we have to avoid bad. And keep our mind pure means we have to go beyond such discrimination between good and bad. That is what Dogen wrote about in this fascicle, Shohaku Okumura. And his writing is very unique. Where it is. So this is about relation or connection between good and bad and beyond good and bad. And usually we think in our daily lives, we have to follow the principle of doing good, avoid evil. But in our Zazen, we go beyond good and bad. We stop thinking what is good or what is bad. So this is kind of contradicted. Or to be awakening, to be enlightened is going beyond the level of morality that is good and bad. But mainly what Dogen is saying in this chapter of Shobogenzo is these are interconnected. These are one thing. Not doing evil and practice everything good and going beyond good and bad are not contradicted. They are one. Let's see. That is what Uchiyama Roshi is going to quote in the next paragraph. I'd like to read a little bit longer before Uchiyama Roshi quote. This is section 2 of Shohaku Okumura. Dogen said, he introduced this teaching of Buddha and he said, this being so, when we study the supreme unsurpassable true awakening, Aruttara Samyak Sambodhi, that is going beyond good and bad, going beyond any discrimination. But when we hear the teachings, the teaching we need to go beyond good and bad. Hear the teachings, do practice this teaching, and verify the result. So this is a process of our practice. It is profound, far-reaching, and wondrous. This reality beyond discrimination is profound, far-reaching, and wondrous beyond discrimination, because any thinking, even our thinking about Buddhist teaching is still discrimination. We hear of the supreme awakening that is beyond good and bad, sometimes following a teacher. We study with a teacher, following teacher's teaching, and sometimes following the sutras, by reading sutras. At the beginning, when we start to study, at the beginning, it sounds like do not do any evil. So when we study the utmost, ultimate teaching that is beyond good and bad, Dogen said, first, in the beginning, it sounds like do not do any evil. So do not do any evil is not negation or against doing good. These are not contradicted. But not doing anything evil is a direct manifestation of ultimate reality. If we don't hear, do not do any evil, it is not the true Dharma of Buddhas. It must be a suggestion of demons. That means if we hear the teaching that true reality is beyond thinking, beyond discrimination, beyond good and bad. Therefore, if we think, therefore I don't need to care about what is good or what is bad. I am free. Whatever I want, just do it. If we think such action that is based in accordance with the true reality of beyond good and bad, or beyond discrimination, he said that is demon's teaching. If we don't hear, do not do any evil, it is not the true Dharma of Buddhas. It must be a suggestion of demons. We should know that which says, do not do any evil, is the true Dharma of Buddhas. This saying, do not do any evil, is not set up in this way through fabrication of ordinary human beings. So this teaching, Buddha's teaching, not do anything evil, is not based on our common way understanding of good and bad is contradicted to each other. And we have to make choice doing good, and we have to reject what is wrong. That is really discrimination. And that is what we usually think as a social morality. But Dogen said it's not what Buddha taught. This saying, do not do any evil, is not set up in this way through fabrication of ordinary human beings. What is good, what is bad, as a ethics, social ethics, is according to Dogen or Buddha, is fabrication. That means man-made thing. When we hear the awakening in the form of verbal teaching, we hear in this way, means do not do any evil. When we study the true reality beyond discrimination, we hear that teaching, do not do any evil. If we hear this way, that is the utterance of supreme awakening using words. So if this ultimate reality is expressed using words, it is saying, do not do any evil. Since this is already the utterance of awakening, so this is utterance of our expression of awakening. These words are themselves awakening. So do not do any evil. Of course, other three lines also. This verse by Shakyamuni is themselves awakening. So he said these words are not expression of awakening, but these words itself are awakening. Upon hearing of the utterance of the supreme awakening, that is saying, do not do any evil, being turned by this utterance, so we are turned, we are moved, or we are used by this utterance. We wish not to do any evil. So by understanding this teaching, we personally wish to not do evil and keep practicing not to do any evil. That is our practice. And from next sentence is what Uchiyama Roshi quote in the next paragraph. When any evil is not going on, not being done, this is strange expression, I think, in English. This is that means there's no subject which avoid not doing evil, which avoid doing evil, because there's no self. The strength of practice is immediately manifested. So it's not I decide and I wish not doing evil, but even when beyond our thinking or wish, determination, somehow evil thing is not manifested, is not done. Then the strength of practice is immediately manifested. So as far as I think this is evil or bad, therefore I have to avoid as our thinking, then that is not Buddhist practice. But without, beyond such things, somehow we naturally avoid when we embody the letting go of thought or opening the hand of thought. That means being free from ego-centeredness. Then our actions naturally become beneficial, not to me or not to others, but we try to do most healthy things for both self and others. And this manifestation shows itself in an amount equal to the entire earth, the entire world, all times and all beings. So when we see we are living together with all beings throughout space and time, then we naturally avoid something self-centered or something harm others. And the measurement of the amount is not doing this maksa. Well, I think that is the end of what Uchiyama Roshi quote here. So Uchiyama Roshi's second paragraph of page 167 is a part of what Dogen said. There is a chapter of the Shobo Genzo titled Refraining from All Evil or Shohaku Maksa. A passage in it says, when all evil truly comes not to be produced, the power of practice is completely actualized. This actualization embraces the whole earth, the whole world, all time, the whole Dharma. The measure of this actualization can be found in the depth of refraining from evil. So the translation is really different, but this is what Dogen is saying about not doing evil and practice good. So to live in that way means our body and mind is filled with Dharma, myriad Dharmas, and we become free from ourselves, our clinging to ourselves. Then we can naturally do something beneficial to others, not only to others, to ourselves and others. That is a bodhisattva practice. To understand and to become such a person who can do things together with all beings. It really takes a long time to memorize what Buddha said in the sutras, or what Dogen wrote in Shobo Genzo, or what Uchiyama Roshi said in his lecture. That is not enough. We have to, how can I say, learn how to use this, our body and mind, to actualize this teaching. Then it's not an easy thing. Next paragraph. Instead of just trying to avoid doing something evil by means of moral effort, we can actualize the universal self of the whole earth, the whole world, the whole Dharma. And that is what, everything we encounter is me, ourself. Whole Dharma. In other words, when we settle in the universal self, all evil is necessarily not produced. That is what Dogen said. The measure of its actualization can be found in the depths of refraining from evil. Means that when we keep on practicing Zazen steadily, we will understand deeply that whenever, wherever, whatever happens, everything is universal, and we are a tiny part of it, and we are empty. Everything is universal. It is in the manner that all evil comes not to be produced. So he explained what Dogen said. That's why we have to practice as long as we live. So there's no graduation in this practice. And the final paragraph, that is the conclusion of this section. To spend your life being blinded and dragged around by your own desires is a pathetic thing. However you live, what you do with your life, depending on you. With that understanding, just sit silently for 10 years, then for another 10, and after that for 10 more years. So this is the conclusion of Uchiyama Roshi's teaching in this point 6 of the saying, of the 7 points. Well, it's already 11:17. I think what I said is not enough, but I don't have enough time. So that's all I have to say today. Any comment or question? Basically, what he's saying is our practice is endless, and our awakening is beginningless. We are already there, and yet we have to continue, please.
So no, I appreciate the point about being patient. And so that encouraging people to wait 10 years and then 10 years before practicing. Do you also see a risk that people start to measure practice? They start to feel that they have gotten some authority just by putting in time? It feels like sometimes I feel that people, as they're...
Not only people, but in Buddhist sutras, and then teachings, there's such kind of stages. And I think that those Buddhist masters or the masters made such kind of stages to measure where we are, how much we progress. But for example, 52 stages of Bodhisattva way, from the beginning when we aroused bodhicitta until we enter the Buddhahood, we have to go through 52 stages, and it takes more than forever. So actually there's no such stages. Even to go one stage up, it takes more than one lifetime. So I think in these teachings, both are there. We have to encourage ourselves to go ahead and study more and practice more. So there is a kind of a goal. But this goal, when we reach there, there is another goal. And this process is really endless. And when you become Buddha, when a Bodhisattva complete this 52 stages and become Buddha, that is not the end of the story. You know, as Shakyamuni Buddha did, when he became Buddha, he started to teach. And he had very difficult time, I think, hard time to teach, all deluded monks. So even after reaching the Buddhahood, we have to continue to teach compassionately to others. So it's really endless practice. So as a kind of skillful means, they made that kind of stages or steps. In Zen teaching also there are many kind of such stages. But what Dogen is trying to say is those are skillful means. As a reality, there is no such distinction. So it's okay to believe, we can reach one goal and to go to practice until we reach the next goal. But if we think, because I reached at certain stages, then I'm perfect, I'm done, I'm an enlightened person, that is a mistake. So these stages are kind of a skillful means to encourage us. We are not yet in the goal. I think that is what is said in the Lotus Sutra. Well, I don't have time to talk about it. It's a long story. Okay.
Well, isn't that part of a paradox that you're working through all these stages only to realize that you only arrive at the place that you're at?
Yeah, from the beginning, or even before we start to practice, we are there. Because, what Buddha awakened to is interconnection. No self, emptiness and interconnectedness. And we are born within that network of interdependent origination. So whether we think so or not, we are empty. We are just a collection of 5 skandhas. So yeah, when we study and practice, we kind of return to the original place. So there's really nothing to gain. I'm sorry. Okay. Anything else?
I guess I have, it's a little difficult to express, but sometimes when people first come to, I think, any kind of zazen or meditation practice, of course they want to gain something, naturally, or change something. And I think what we talked about today is, the zazen itself, stays exactly the same. There's no change in the way that we practice, but we do change in a sense as our small self progresses over time. And it seems to me that, even though we can't approach zazen with gaining mind, there is still a positive effect of practicing zazen, provided that you don't attach to gaining that positive effect. So I guess my question is how do we express that side of things? Because it seems that we tend to always emphasize, everything's the same, nothing changes, it's just this practice. But there is also this other side, I think, where we do get a little something somehow.
That is the process of our growth, spiritual growth. And I think Uchiyama Roshi said, in one paragraph we read today, he said there is a result.
Yes, yeah.
And so that is true. But if we think because we have such a result, I'm perfect, or I reach the goal, that is a mistake. So this is really endless. And ultimately speaking, nothing to gain. But we can kind of observe the growth, like kid become a teenager become young adult, and middle-aged person. So there's some growth, some change. That is true, and it's better to grow in a better, good way, healthier way, not unhealthy way. So on that ground, there's a good and bad, of course.
So what I tell people in the Wednesday night group is zazen is good for nothing is not the same as zazen has no result.
I don't know.
Zazen without a goal, not without a goal that we're grasping, which is just what you're saying, is not the same as zazen has no result.
Or in another way, zazen is the result.
Zazen is the result.
Zazen is where we return.
Well, we have our zazen, and zazen is not for accomplishing anything in particular. But as you say, it also has a consequence to our lives as we live it. Then we have our precept teachings, and try as I will, I'm never perfect with that. But I think I'm getting better at being compassionate and avoiding evil and doing good. And I make that something of my priority in my social interactions with others. And all that is part of my practice, even though that's something that is of a different quality than zazen.
That's good. that is what Dogen says, we study the ultimate truth. And when we hear that ultimate truth, we think, Dogen said, we hear do not evil. But we often make something unhealthy, so it's not right. But if we can avoid unhealthy things, then we hear that ultimate teaching. So if we compare my condition, I had to, or I couldn't avoid evil things, unhealthy things, but now I can become free from doing such unhealthy things. Then we can say, this is growth, this is change, and this is a good change, and that is okay. But if we think, therefore we become Buddha, then that is a mistake. Okay. Anything else?
There is a question online from Bruce. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Okumura Roshi. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Morning.
I have a comment, and then it leads into a question. My comment is that I started sitting Zazen when I was 19. I'm 48 years old now. And when I first met a teacher that was very helpful to me, he told me, sit 4 years, practice 4 years, 4 years more, then 4 years, then 4 years more, forever. And then what has been revealed to me over the decades is that while my 5 skandhas have been operating, I had this idea that popped up, that's there, that they produced, that I am me. This is mine. This is my body. This is my mind. And with that, I have these other assumptions that go along with that, that reify that whole process. This just happens. And so this false structure of the self somehow just began out of all of that. And I noticed over time that this is part of the genuine structure of the self. 1 equals 0 equals infinity. You know, and so but leading into that, you know, I wonder if there's anything else that you can say to help me to appreciate more the saying by this Buddha Gosa. He says, mere suffering exists, but no sufferer is found. The deeds are, but no doer is found. What more can I do to continue to see how this false structure takes experience and causes suffering for me and others? That's my question.
So Buddha taught there is suffering, but there's no sufferer. Like there are thinking, but no thinker. That is anatoma, no self. So when we see emptiness or no self, there is things happening, and yet, you know, there's no such subject as a person who suffer. I think that is basically what Buddha taught, and Mahayana teaching of emptiness is the same thing. And what we do as a practice of Zazen is really let go of this thinker. Somehow thinking needs thinker. I don't know why, but somehow doing needs doer. That is our way of thinking, our method of thinking require, you know, what thing is a substance or subject of what is done. And usually we think this thinker has a responsibility about whether thinking is right or wrong. But what Buddha taught is there is no such thinker, but only thinking, or no doer, but only doing. That is very interesting idea, if it's idea, but I don't think it's an idea. But I think that means we don't need to do what I am thinking. That is what we do when we open our hand. That means what me as a shohaku, as a thinker, think I want to do this, or I wish to do that, or I want to get that thing. That is what shohaku is thinking. And letting go of thought is not pursue that way, but just sit. And I think that is what Dogen said, that liberation from making karma and make karmic retribution, that is suffering. I don't think this is the answer, but this is a repetition of what Buddha taught. But that is the only thing I can say now. So it's not my answer. I hope you understand.
I do. I really appreciate it. It motivates me to continue to practice. I think the reason why I'm able to sit 7 days a week and do sesshin once a month and wholeheartedly practice the teachings on a regular basis, and it took decades for that to happen, is because Zazen is useless. There's no person called Bruce that benefited, just the world. That's why I'm motivated to want to continue to try.
I appreciate your practice. Please continue. 30 more years. Thank you very much. Is there anything else? Okay, can we finish?